It's almost like they're saying, no. Our point isn't to help the other people. It's to steal their stuff. That's why we're doing it. So we're not like Obama, you know what I mean? Which again, it's just weird. Like, okay.
They're throwing.
I'm not sure that makes it. You see why that's worse, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. And you could see he was just pulling out whatever he could think of and just throwing it at the wall. Did that convince you? But this is a whole different hemisphere. Yeah. It's not the same at all.
Right.
Hi, Bob.
Hey, Adam.
It's been so long since we've podcasted together. Welcome to 2026, and how were your holidays?
They were interesting and relaxing and very enjoyable. How were yours?
Mine were festive and relaxing.
Good.
Very good stuff. But then come back to reality and look in the news and you see what's happened. Did you hear what happened? The craziest thing.
I did. And folks, just so you know, as part of our Christmas break, Adam and I did watch a movie. We're not going to tell you what it is yet. You're just going to have to keep tuning in. And our plan was we're going to do this movie review, as is our wont with our series for highbrow stuff for you folks. And but we said, unless something big happens. And I would think this qualifies.
Yeah, this was pretty big. I mean, you know how we've been talking about how the military of Sweden has been sailing over to North America and bombing boats off the coast of Florida. Well, they upped the ante, the evil government of Sweden, and they invaded Mar-a-Lago and kidnapped Donald Trump and Melania and just spirited them away. And it seemed nuts and like a crime or something. But then the people who were supporting the action said that when Trump got kidnapped, the Americans were like dancing in the streets, and so they were all happy, so that made it okay. But I still had questions. And then another person who supported the military action said, yeah, but Trump was the head of a regime that had been just flooding poor Sweden with McDonald's hamburgers and Captain Crunch cereal and Hostess Twinkies, and that's just been ruining the health of the poor Swedish people. You see how fat those people are now? So I guess Trump had it coming. I don't know. What do you think?
I thought you were going to go with the vaccine route. All these pharmaceutical poisons.
That would have been better, but Captain Crunch cereal's funnier, so I went that way.
I remember it fondly. Yeah, that's so obviously, folks, we're talking about Venezuela and largely not just the operation, but moreover the discussion about it. As always on this show, we're very meta. We're going to talk about what people are talking about, but do it in a way that I think will be illuminating. And we got a lot of material for the folks.
Let's rush through it then.
Strap in, folks.
I mean, I guess we're taking it as a given that people know that everything I said about Sweden, we actually did that too. This country called Venezuela that has this sort of communistic dictator named Maduro. And yeah, we kidnapped him.
Future LLMs that are getting trained on this are going to be like, wait, what? It's a good thing you said that.
Exactly. So yeah, people have been talking and writing and tweeting all about it. So should we just jump into the commentary?
Yeah, and this covers a lot of stuff here, folks. So we just have a little potpourri. So this first one, I believe this clip is from Cat Timpf on the what's the guy's name?
Greg Gutfield?
Yeah, I couldn't think of his last name. I was going to say Greg Gould, but it's like, no, that's not right. Okay, Stephen J. Gould's who I'm thinking of. Greg Gutfield, funny chap, and she had this to say about a certain contradiction in the way that the administration and its defenders are presenting the situation. I didn't see the full clip, so I don't even know if Miss Timpf is even against it. I think she's more just saying what you guys are saying about it doesn't make any sense, and that's why it's just shocking to me.
Right. In her own words.
You have to see how some people might be feeling a little bit of whiplash here, given that Trump spent 10 years railing against U.S.-led regime change war. His own director of intelligence, as recently as 2 months ago, was railing against regime change war, and then he does one. So
is this a regime change? The regime is still there, as far as I know, the vice president.
Let me get this straight. We go to a country, we capture their leader, we bomb it, and then we say, we run this country now, and that's not war. But when they say send cocaine over here that people are willingly snorting, that is war.
I think that
doesn't make any sense.
It does to me.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I'm with her.
Right, and what I loved about that was just how it's like what I used to call a Krugman contradiction with a K.
Right.
That it's any one of those things in isolation, and this really does dovetail with how I feel about Krugman, is usually whatever he would say, I would disagree with his take, but it was like, okay, but that's not insane. I could see why you could reasonably think that. But then when the circumstances were different in a way that if he were consistent with the way he adjusted the dials in the previous scenario, then he would end up having to agree with the Republicans. And then, no, he would change the dials. And then all of a sudden his, same thing here, where I think it's nuts, but I could understand someone saying, well, no, what we did there really wasn't a war. I mean, we lost zero, we had 0 casualties. How's that a war? That's not war. It's just not, a police extraction, or it's basically an arrest in a hostile, neighborhood. Okay. But then again, by the same token, well, then how is it an act of war when people in Venezuela are selling drugs to willing buyers? I mean, anyway.
Yeah, it's pretty goofy, and I'll have more to say on all of that, but I want to get through these clips because some of them are bonkers.
Okay, yeah. So the next one is from Stephen Miller, and I liked his previous work. The hits he pumped out. So here, he's not flying like an eagle anymore.
Yeah, not exactly. All right.
The United States is using its military to secure our interests unapologetically in our hemisphere. We're a superpower, and under President Trump, we are going to conduct ourselves as a superpower. It is absurd that we would allow a nation in our own backyard to become the supplier of resources to our adversaries, but not to us, to hoard weapons from our adversaries, to be able to be positioned as an asset against the United States rather than on behalf of the United States.
Sovereign countries shouldn't be able to do what they want to do.
The Monroe Doctrine and the Trump Doctrine is all about securing the national interests of America. For years, we sent our soldiers to die in deserts in the Middle East to try to build them parliaments, to try to build them democracies, to try to give them more oil, to try to give them more resources. The future of the free world, Jake, depends on America being able to assert ourselves and our interests without apology. This whole period that happened after World War II, where the West began apologizing and groveling and begging
I don't even
and
know
engaging these
honestly
vast
what you're talking
reparation
about right
schemes.
now.
What I'm talking about, Jake, is the idea. And by the way, you do. I know you love doing that smarmy thing, Jake, and I was hoping to be better than that this time.
I asked you about if there should be an election.
Exactly.
I asked you if there would be an election in Venezuela. That's what I asked. I said, why was the president so quick to dismiss Machado? You answered that question. And then I said,
the objective, Jake, is security and stability for the people of Venezuela. With our help and leadership, that country will become more prosperous than it has ever been in its whole history. Venezuelans
but the woman
will be richer
running Venezuela
and
right
safer
now is
and
part
more
of the Maduro
secure and
regime.
better off. There will be conversations, Jake, about all of these guideposts along the way. The reason why I was giving you that speech, which I know you didn't want to hear, is because you're approaching this from the wrong frame. This neoliberal frame that the United States' job is to go around the world and demanding immediate elections be held everywhere, immediately, all the time, right away. To create these vacuums.
That's not what I think, but you invaded the country. We went into the country and we seized the leader of Venezuela.
Damn straight we did.
And I'm saying,
we're not going to let.
So is the U.S. going to have new elections?
Jake, is that we're not going to let Tim Pot communist dictators send rapists into our country, send drugs into our country, send weapons into our country.
Okay.
And we're not going to let a country fall into the hands of our adversaries.
That was fascinating. And I'm just going to say some stuff because I'm a poker player and I stare at people for a living. Mm-hmm. That first, 2/3, 4/5 of what Miller was saying, he did not believe. Like, I've heard him before talking about immigration and what we need to do on the southern border, and he believes that stuff. And then when he got to the end, sort of talking about protecting our southern border, you could see his shoulders relax. He slowed down a little bit, and he believed what he was saying. Mm-hmm. But this whole nonsense about what are we doing in Venezuela, toppling leaders, and why are we doing it? I don't think he believes a word of that. I think that was the script, and it was hilarious.
And what's interesting is he even referred to it as a speech.
Right, exactly.
Which is, again, sort of a tick or something. But anyway, yeah. I agree with you. I mean, there's a lot there, and some of it overlaps with some points from tweets later, so I won't dwell too much on it. But let me just say, there's a Matt Walsh tweet, folks, we're going to show in a minute, that is a similar thing. But what's really screwy about this thing about how they're saying, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to explain how could it be that we were all about not having regime change wars like Obama and Bush, and now we just had a regime change war. So number one, they try to take, well, it wasn't really a war. Okay, so, that element, okay. And then, of course, the other thing, too, is that, this is more of a police action. And our point, it's almost like they're saying, no. Our point isn't to help the other people. It's to steal their stuff. That's why we're doing it. So we're not like Obama, what I mean? Which, again, is just weird. Like, okay.
They're throwing.
I'm sure that makes it, you see why that's worse, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. And you could see he was just pulling out whatever he could think of and just throwing it at the wall. Did that convince you? But this is a whole different hemisphere. Yeah. It's not the same at all.
Right. But anyway, I'm sorry, but let me just make sure I don't forget. But what I want to say is, on the surface, though, no, it's not that the Bush administration spent months prepping the American people to say, we're going to go and lose a bunch of people and be over there for a decade plus. And the reason we're doing that is to bring elections and letting girls be able to go to school and choose whatever profession they want. That's why we're doing it. That is absolutely not how we got into it. That's what ended up happening. And so likewise here, now, again, I will grant Trump, as is his want, is more naked in what he says and doesn't like flower it up, and he's more direct, and what I mean? So like it's almost refreshing, his candor. But my point is that none of those other things where they're trying to say, oh, that's not what we're doing here. That's not what anyone thought was happening at the outset of every single one of those ones also. And so that doesn't really inoculate you from saying, well, that's not going to happen here because we're saying at the outset that's not what we're doing. Okay, that's not.
And when they're talking to the other side of the aisle, they're saying, yeah, but this guy's a dictator, and we're giving freedom to the Venezuelan people. And don't you like that? Right. Didn't you fall for that last time?
Right. Yeah, it's like we are bringing democracy and freedom to these people, but that's not why we're doing it. We're stealing their oil. No. We're taking the oil they stole from us. That's like in their ground. It's bastards.
Do you briefly want to touch on this ridiculous, we're just extracting vengeance for Chevron or ExxonMobil or whatever?
I mean, I could very briefly, just because especially since as a former chief economist for the Institute for Energy Research, I would want to really know more of the particulars before I shoot my mouth off on stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, the claim is, for those who haven't been following this stuff, is that Exxon, I think ConocoPhillips and Chevron had like big deals with the previous regime, and then Chavez and then Maduro reneged on that and did what classic socialist men of the people do and seized the oil and stick it to those big fat cat international oil companies, coming from the demon United States. We're not going to play ball with them. We're going to give the stuff to the people. We're going to renegotiate. These deals were, the worst deal in history. And so that's the claim, is that these companies had legitimate claims. So I haven't investigated enough to say whether like, oh yeah, that's totally correct, or what did they think was going to happen? I don't know enough to say, but let's stipulate for the sake of argument that yes, the best case scenario I have heard is that this is effectively just like if some guy mugs you, you call the police and they have to go get your wallet, or they, in theory, will, that here these big oil companies were mugged by the Venezuelan government, either Chavez or Maduro, continuing the policy. And so the U.S. government is not just going to let people steal billions of dollars from our companies. And it's like, no, why would we do that? So that's the claim, that this should be viewed as a police action. Hey, there were, there was a grand jury and so forth against these, so this is just like he's a criminal. What, just because he happens to be a dictator, that's why the law doesn't apply to him? Like, that's the way they're spinning it. They're like, we're just enforcing the law. I don't, sorry.
Yeah, I looked into it a little. Apparently, the first time they nationalized was way back in 76. And they actually paid something for it, eminent domain style. And so the American companies sort of let it go. But when it happened again in 07, they didn't. And the companies got whatever you call it in the world court, a judgment, which Venezuela promptly didn't pay. And so I get the police action argument, except when the police are around to, get back our stolen wallet, if you and I are mugged, well, we live here in this country, see? So that kind of works. But I do not understand why you and I, who don't go to Venezuela and do business with risky regimes, why we have to subsidize the risk profile, of risk investment profile for these other companies. It's like you pay for that. You get insurance, or you pony up and hire your own military to defend your interests. But why in the world do people who don't do business in risky places have to pay?
Right. And also, I still have not seen good accounts of what exactly happened, but I've seen reports that at least, the death toll's up to 80. How many of that are military versus, some lady pushing a baby stroller across the street? I don't know. But still, if the police went to retrieve stolen property and 80 people ended up dead, I think in most situations people would say that was not a successful operation.
Yeah.
Like that's
how big's that wallet?
Yeah.
Now, let's take a break for a totally organic conversation about a great company.
Hey, Bob. Remember the merch tables I saw the last time I tabled for the Libertarian Party? Everything went sideways for those guys.
Hard to forget, especially since you've told me 3 times already. What could those poor schlubs do to make things better?
I've been hearing great things about the Swan Brothers. They offer premium gear, embroidered polos, durable tees, and they'll set up a professional online store at no cost. They handle design, printing, and shipping end to end. Lots of options, too. Hats, mugs, bags, even branded socks. And if you run out of sizes on site, they provide a QR code so people can order and have items shipped directly.
That sounds amazing. Who else would that help?
Pretty much anyone. Startups doing promo, nonprofits fundraising, sports leagues, outfitting teams, churches, you name it. Quick turnaround, fair pricing, and volume discounts. Take a look at theswanbrothers.com/cross.
Okay, organic conversation over. Back to the show.
Do you know, Adam, because they're referring to oil. I mean, is it literally that these companies paid, royalty fees and whatever, and then they just said, oh, thanks, but no, actually we're going to keep it? Or is it more they spent a bunch of money developing the wells?
It's infrastructure development and, running the whole thing.
Okay, so really, I mean, I get the idea that, because they're a bunch of socialist buffoons, they don't even know how to pump their own oil the way we do. I mean, and that's true. I'm not saying that sarcastically. Like, the best expertise is in these big multinational oil companies in terms of you got some oil somewhere, especially if it's underwater, we know how to get it out.
Usually.
But, I mean, there could be a fire. But yeah. So you're saying that it's more that they spent a bunch of money on the infrastructure and then they nationalized all that. And so to say they stole our oil, that's actually not really the oil part. Like the stealing, we can debate that verb too. But to say what was stolen, to say they stole
the part that would have
oil,
been stolen is their percentage of how much, according to the deal. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So what's next? We got lots of hits, folks. Who's next?
We just did Miller.
We did.
Okay, let's do Ben Shapiro. Let me explain this. So now we're moving back in time, folks. I believe this clip is from early December that we're going to play for you from Ben Shapiro's show. And why I liked it is what I was trying to do is show how shocking this was, and that like Conservative Inc. and all those people discussing it never, ever, ever said that, oh yeah, we're just going to go in and kidnap the guy and bring him back. Or they wouldn't say, we're going to go in and capture him or arrest him and bring him back. You know what I mean? I was looking at him. Does this sound right to you? I swear that like the people laughing at the Panicons and the people like who mocked Dave Smith after we didn't have World War III 2 days after bombing Iran, you know what I mean? Like those types of people, I swear when the motorboat hits started occurring, and people were worried about we're getting sucked into a war, were laughing at us and be like, oh, yeah, because we took out some motorboats. Yeah, that's World War III, guys. Okay, yeah. Oh, we're getting ready to invade Venezuela. Does that sound right to you, that like that was the mocking and derision that was coming from that side?
That's what I remember.
Okay. So, unfortunately, folks, I was trying to go find some smoking guns. I swear the advanced search on Twitter was not working well, like, because it was like, oh, no one has ever used the word Venezuela in the last 8 months. I don't think so from this account. But in any event, what I did find for you folks is this clip from Ben Shapiro. Again, this was from, I think, early December, or maybe even mid-December, where he's just talking about the situation vis-a-vis Venezuela, and just to get to show as much as it happened, because I don't think it's fully in the clip, but he had talked earlier about, like, we had, F-35s and blah, 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 and ships there and everything, and all people ready to go. And this is still, you'll see what Ben Shapiro's theory was as to how this might play out and what Trump must be thinking.
Here we go.
It's not going to be enough for people to get out in the streets. We've already seen that. We already saw years ago when Juan Guaido was elected in an actual election. So Juan Guaido was probably elected in 2018. There were disputed elections. Guaido was leader of the opposition, and that led to a crisis that lasted for approximately 3 years over Maduro retaining power, despite the fact that he almost certainly was not the person who won the election or was wanted by the people of Venezuela. But it turned out that getting people out in the streets between 2019 and 2021 didn't actually do much. That in the end, Maduro just consolidated his control. And so the question now is whether there is something more. So the fact that the United States is blowing up a source of revenue, those narco-trafficking boats, that the United States is closing the airspace, that the United States is doing all these things, ratchets up the pressure. You have to imagine the only reason the United States would be doing this is if they have actual allies they can work with inside the business elite or the political elite or certainly the military elite inside Venezuela. Because the mark of regimes that tend to be able to withstand Western pressure are ones that have a very solid chain of command in the pay of the dictator. That is true in places like Russia. It's true in Iran. It's true in North Korea. The question is whether it's true in Venezuela. Because if you look at the history of coups in Latin and South America, if you look at the history of regime changes or dictators who are removed, what you will see is a few factors in common. Usually, there is a split or a defection inside the security forces surrounding the president or the dictator. That the president or dictator relies on the ability, in the end, to point guns at the people and tell them to stand down. And if there is a break, then the regime tends to fall. Usually, you have to have somebody, a regime elite, right? Somebody second, third, fourth in command, who's willing to take the lead in the opposition, which, of course, is risky because if you lose, you die, typically. And then international pressure and economic crisis points can create the impetus for the overthrow of a regime. So you have to imagine that the only reason the Trump administration would be pursuing this is if they have some sort of serious intel that there is, in fact, a break inside Maduro's security organization, that there is somebody who's willing to take up the baton, and that additional pressure forces Maduro to flee and the military to make a move to defenestrate him, replace him with a transitional figure, or to hold free and fair elections.
Okay, let me ask you, well, it's still fresh and you just saw it, Adam. Right at the end there where he said, and to have the military defenestrate him and to have free and fair election, I think he meant the Venezuelan military.
Yes.
Okay, so we're on the same page. So I just want to check to make sure I didn't say that and you were like, oh, Bob, that's not how I read it. So my
More
point,
importantly,
folks, yeah.
Doesn't defenestrate mean throw out of a window? It's a weird word to keep using over and over.
He loves that word.
You know what else annoys me about that? I mean, Ben Shapiro just annoys me. And it shouldn't bother me when somebody does something right. But the way he really emphatically correctly pronounced Juan's name just bugged me for some reason.
Yeah. It's like on NPR when they sign up and they say, this is Juanito Rajota on NPR News. All right.
Yes, exactly. I shouldn't be bothered by that. I know, but I am. I don't know.
But it's Robert Murphy here on the Bob Murphy Show.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Let me just finish. So, yes, I agree with all that. My point, folks, in that is notice. So he was talking about shutting down the airspace. How Trump had warned and said, "Don't fly over this." We don't want to accidentally shoot him. So I mean, serious military provocations, And yet at the end there, and he was talking about ratcheting up, and you might have thought like, oh yeah, because I've heard reports that maybe the way that this operation, which we should say, Adam, like if you had asked me the week earlier, could we physically do this? I would have said no, or they would be incredibly risky. Maybe it was incredibly risky, and they really got lucky. Who knows? But I've heard people say they must have had communication with people on the security. You know what I mean? Like if they just kind of decided, yeah, the U.S. is coming in and there's no point in us all getting killed. Let's just leave the back door unlocked or something. Maybe that happened. But again, folks, that's not what Ben Shapiro was talking about. He wasn't saying we're going to minimize our casualties when we go in and lay hands on the guy. He was thinking, yeah, we're going to be over here. Our planes are going to be doing something, but we're not going to send troops in there. That'd be nuts.
Yeah,
and we've been assuring people for 5 months we're not crazy.
That would be insane. Are we playing the Nobel Peace Prize lady next, please?
Yes.
So
you're kind of like the George Harrison. Sometimes I let Adam do a clip. Let's go ahead.
Yay. Yeah, when this was the topic, this is the one I just knew we had to play. And it's great that it comes after Ben Shapiro talking about how we must have had a cadre of generals that wanted to overthrow this guy, and we're working with them. Well, I don't know. They gave the Nobel Peace Prize to this crazy-looking lady we're about to play. And she's making a completely different and very blatant bribery-type offer to U.S. corporations. And I don't think she's working with the military under Maduro. Let's hear what she... this was from like a month ago, maybe, something like that. And she zoomed into something called the America Business Forum. This is Maria Corina Machado.
Maria Corina Machado.
I refuse to do that. Yeah, so this is what she had to say. She's just talking about, hey, guys, maybe come over and invade my country and put me in charge. It could be worth your while.
And this is amazing, super exciting for me. We will open Venezuela for foreign investment. I am talking about a $1.7 trillion opportunity, not only in oil and gas, which is huge, and you know that the opportunities, because we will open all upstream, middle stream, downstream to all companies, but also in mining, in gold, in infrastructure, power. We have our grid right now has a 17 gigawatt opportunity of energy potential that needs to be rehabbed. Certainly for technology and AI and tourism. You know, Venezuela has 2,800 kilometers of pristine Caribbean coastline ready to be developed. So this is going to be huge. We will bring rule of law. We will open markets. We will have security for foreign investment and a transparent, massive privatization program that is waiting for you.
Just come overthrow Maduro, put me in charge, and you can have everything. Have you seen this amazing pristine coastline? You can have it all, baby.
That was like listening to the madam of a brothel or something. I mean, guys are walking by and she's trying to get
These
them to come in.
people will do anything for you. Just put me in charge, I beg of you.
Wow. I mean, right? So you had prepped me and told me what that was going to be. I was surprised at just how naked it was.
I do hyperbolize. It's a failing of mine, but nope, that's what she said.
Wow. Okay. Good clip.
So yeah. Thank you,
George. They let him do a song and he does something. They're like, "Hey, that's a good song, George. Good job,
George."
All right, I'm going to do the next one.
And the next one. And the next one.
Oh, darling. All right. It is want to do the Seth Moulton one?
Let's do the Seth.
Okay,
Moulton
so this
one.
was the context here. I want to say at October-ish, maybe November-ish. There was a briefing done. What's interesting is it was like described as for senators, but then this guy who comes up and talks, we believe is Seth Moulton, who is a representative from Massachusetts, right? So I guess he was allowed to be in there, but anyway, so there was a briefing about the Venezuelan situation. And this is, so that's, it was like Hegseth and Rubio and some other people were in there. and gave this closed doors thing. And so the people coming out, they had this mic set up, and some people came over. Like other ones, Adam, I didn't bother sending to you, but people came and gave their. And it was typically if they were Republican, they were like America F yeah, and if they were Democrats, well, we have some grave concerns about blah 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 blah, you know. And so, so this kind of thing where they're all saying we can't tell you what they just told us because it's classified, but here's how I feel about it. All right, and so anyway, this is what this guy's telling us, his reaction.
The justification behind the strikes for you, and was it satisfactory?
It's absolutely not satisfactory. There are a lot of legal questions, and that's why it's so important that this opinion get declassified. The only reason it's classified is because some of the findings that support the fact that this is a threat to the United States. But they're clearly keeping it classified because they don't want to share this rationale.
Are you worried that we could be creeping into a regime change with Venezuela, potential war over there?
Absolutely. And I heard no commitment to coming to Congress for an AUMF, for a declaration of war, before they conduct ground operations, if that's clearly their intent to do so. And I don't understand why there would be several thousand Marines on ships. I served as a Marine on ship. We're not there to conduct boat strikes. We're just there to go in on the ground. So I don't understand why there would be thousands of Marines off the coast of Venezuela if they do not intend to actually use them on the ground.
Is it a deterring presence to have them there?
Deterring from what?
Narcotics movements?
I mean, I didn't get a chance to ask a question, but the question I would have asked is, if you have been successful at deterring boats from transporting narcotics, are you actually succeeding in your goal of deterring drugs, or are drugs coming in other ways? Have you actually seen any decrease in drugs in the United States as a result of a decrease in these boat transits? We have yet to hear any rationale. I mean, the other thing I'd like to ask is, if this Honduran drug kingpin was pardoned because he was indicted by the Southern District of New York under the Biden administration, then does this administration plan to pardon Maduro because he too was indicted by the Southern District of New York under the Biden administration? I'd like to hear an answer to that question too.
Thank you, Congressman.
Well, I don't think so, because unlike the Honduras guy, I mean, this Maduro guy is being charged with having an automatic weapon in Venezuela.
Yeah.
Being police action from the United States.
But I think he saw it off. You can't do that.
You can't do that. Just ask Randy Weaver.
Yeah. He didn't register it with the BATF, so.
Yeah. It just gets goofier and goofier, doesn't it?
So that's, I like that just for all around, you know, him saying, why do we, so the folks, the context, and I had forgotten about this, like the news moves so fast, Adam. Before the huge controversy was, people came out and said, yeah, these boat strikes, one of them hit a thing, and there were two guys hanging on to the, you know, is it flotsam, jetsam? I forget what those words mean. And they need to defenestrate the boat. And that they, you know, came in and a second strike took them out and killed them. And that some people said, yeah, Hegseth sent the order down just saying kill them all. And so, you know, that was leaked. You know what I mean? It wasn't like Pete Hegseth went out and said, yes, those are the words I said, I order the code red. But he didn't deny that he gave that order, and he was just, you know, talking around in big circles when people were asking him. And so some Democrats, that's the reason they were coming out and saying, hey, American military servicemen and women, if you get, you know, an unlawful order, you're not supposed to obey it. And then the people on Fox were freaking out, and they was actually in that Ben Shapiro, the episode. I just didn't, you know, we had moved past that. That was how the episode opened. Freaking out about, you can't be telling people in the military not to obey unlawful orders, because then you're, you know, how can we fight wars then? That's you're endangering American lives with that crazy talk. So it was funny. He caught himself. He said, now, I mean, their defense is going to be that what they're saying is of course correct. But what I'm saying is, it was like, yeah, I guess they could fall back on what I'm saying is true. So anyway, but that's the context. That's how crazy things were there. And yeah, as the guy was explaining, I think because of the whole story, again, all along, that's probably why I want to include that. He's the one raising questions like, if we're not going in, why do we have, because again, the whole story all along was, no, we're just picking off some boats that are bringing first it was fentanyl, and then people kind of quietly moved it to, well, they're actually sending us fentanyl, so maybe it's something else.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just part of my point, like how this, and again, that guy saying, if you guys are going to invade, we need to update the AUMF. And I saw people like refer to the one after September 11th. No, that one clearly talks about groups related to the September 11th attacks. It's not, an open-ended blank check.
Clearly, yeah.
That if somebody decides that some regime is sending cocaine into the United States, we can go do whatever we want, and Congress is giving authorization for that. So
these arguments on both sides are just so pathetic. You're trying to claim drugs now are a weapon of mass destruction. They're not. I mean, Captain Crunch is and McDonald's hamburgers, but not drugs. And then on the other side, I don't believe I heard a peep, or not a splash, a big one about blowing up the boats and the people in them. But the double tap, those are illegal orders. You can't do that. I mean, you can kill these people, but you can't like super intentionally kill them.
Yeah. What's interesting is Ben Shapiro in that thing, again, not in the clip, folks, I just played for you there, but he was going through the back and forth, and like, because there was this tendency, I think people sometimes have, like when they say, well, I mean, if we're at war with someone, we're trying to kill them. What do you mean? There's no rules. But it's like, no, like even in World War II, I mean, if they surrender and put their hands up and they have a white flag, you can't just mow them down. Yes, sometimes armies do that, but they're not supposed to. That's a violation of the rules of war. And just like with the Gaza stuff, and people sometimes were like, I mean, show me an example in history where people are supposed to let food get into the people they're fighting. And they're like, every example, I mean, the Germans let the Red Cross bring rations to their prisoners of war. I mean, so yes, that's not a weird thing, especially if a civilian population that you've got surrounded, intentionally starving them. No, you're not supposed to do that. So, and it's not like, oh, everyone does it. No, they don't. So anyway, this is another situation like that where, again, on its own terms, okay, they're narco-terrorists, stipulate it. We're justified in sending a thing. Okay, we have totally neutralized them. They're floating in the ocean. You can't just kill them and say, well, they're bad guys. You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, but what if they dry off and then go try and deliver drugs again?
Oh, that's what the lawyer, there was, to their credit, it was someone from National Review. I think it was Andrew McCarthy. Ben Shapiro was reading both sides of the dispute, was saying you can't do this. And then there was some law professor from like Buffalo or something that Shapiro was quoting from, and his argument was, no, that vessel, they could have had a working radio, and they could have had other narco-terrorists come and pick them up, and so that was still, a vessel. Like, in other words, what we were doing was stopping the vessel, and if we had to kill some bad guys, so be it. And no, that vessel could still be operational because you could still see it. That was what he was saying, that it wasn't killing intentionally was the issue. It was, we got to take out that vessel.
The flotsam was still a vessel, but not that jetsam. So yeah, again, the reasons for ostensibly doing this are just so weak and pathetic. They didn't just say Maduro was, getting money for these drug shipments. He was the kingpin of this cartel de los sols. I mean, that's what they were telling us as they did it. But then I was making a joke that all he's being charged with now is, a gun charge in another country, because the revised indictment abandoned the claim that Cartel de los Sols was an actual organization. And instead they said something about Venezuela's a patronage system vis-a-vis drugs and a culture of corruption. And I remember deep in the recesses of my conspiracy brain that specific cartel with that specific name, wasn't that the one that the CIA sort of dreamed into existence when it started doing its operations down there? I could have sworn it was
like when they recruited Tom Cruise to be flying
exactly
the It sounds right, but I can't.
I mean, the officials are now saying, oh no, you misunderstand, or maybe we got that wrong. That cartel does not exist. Like, well, I think I remember when it did.
Yeah.
And why.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Okay.
Also related, I had seen somebody, again, I don't know how much, like I didn't ever see Trump or Rubio saying this, but apparently one of the arguments was, oh, well, the reason this stuff is all linked, see, is that their energy, the state-run energy company is using some of its profits to subsidize the narco-terrorism. So that's the link. And so somebody said, you don't need to subsidize drug dealing. That's very profitable.
Got that causation a little backwards. All right, who's next? Is it someone with a real nasally, annoying voice?
Yes. So this one, folks, I was, again, what I had been trying to see, I admit my failures, because I was just so sure that the people, again, like those who were running victory laps and laughing at like guys like Dave for warning about Iran might, hit our bases in the nearby countries. We better watch out. And then when that didn't happen, you were worried, scaredy pants. Those people also were laughing when the motorboat strikes were happening and saying, no, there's not going to be a war. We're not going to put boots on the ground. What are you talking about? And so I was going through reviewing stuff, and I was grabbing Mark Levin. So I think this clip is from September of 2025. And I couldn't find him talking about Venezuela specifically, but then I did stumble across this, I think it's a 2-minute stretch that was just laugh out loud funny, I thought. And so I said, Adam, since we found this gem, let's at least for posterity show it to the folks.
And folks, I'd like to apologize not only for the words uttered, but the sound that this guy makes when he says them.
I know, it's amazing that
how is he
it's almost
popular?
Impressive. I know. It's like, Muggsy Bogues or something. That's like, even if you weren't that good, that's still, hats off to you.
How'd you get in the league?
The Department of Defense, they changed the name in 1949, it turns out. It was the Department of War from 1789 to 1949. He says, I want to change it back. Why? It's a mindset. It's a psychology. It is an explanation for the reason that it exists. Peace through strength. Peace through strength. The psychology, the mindset is you don't have a massive military to play defense. You have a massive military to defend the country any way necessary. That's why you have a massive military.
I bet he wish he had a do-over for that phrasing at the end.
Talk about painting yourself into a corner. So, folks,
do I really have to use the word defend again?
Yes, folks, just so in case you're driving and your kids were acting up or something you missed. Clear, so he's driving that train and he says, you don't have a massive military to play defense. The reason you have it, and clearly he was, where you're going to go to say to go on offense. And I think he realized, oh, wait, no, that would mean we were launching aggressive wars. You're not supposed to do that. And so he kind of, you don't do it to play defense. You do it to defend the country. Oh, okay. It's like, you're going to play soccer. And the guy's like, wait, am I on offense or defense? He goes, you're not on offense. He goes, so I'm on defense? No. What you need to do is defend the goal. Don't let any balls get in there. I'm on defense? No. What? That's the wrong mindset, dude. Okay.
We shouldn't make fun of him. Maybe his internal voice sounds like that too. Can you imagine the horror?
So that's why he doesn't think much?
There you
He's
go.
just trying to minimize the irritation. All right.
Come full circle.
But seriously, these Warhawks are not sending their best.
No,
I mean,
not the
say what
best
you will
arguments, that's
about
for sure.
William F. Buckley or something, but he was an erudite guy, not doing it to play defense. We're doing it to defend the country. With any means possible. That's why you have a big military. All right. Shall we move to the written word?
Let us do so.
Sucked people in with the audio and video clips. Okay, so we've got a bunch of tweets, folks, and we've packaged them in different categories. Why don't we do the counts one, because you kind of kept alluding to it. So here, we've got screenshots, folks, of, these aren't tweets, the actual, is it indictment? Is that the word I want? From the grand jury,
so, yeah.
Bringing, the charges being brought against Maduro and his wife. These are the ones. And so I thought these were funny, and I grabbed it. Partly because when Pam Bondi tweeted this out, I was a wise guy, and I said to her, so are you saying the U.S. has the right to arrest any political official who has machine guns? and like, I got some good feedback on that, a lot of hearts, but some people were like, read what she said, dumbass, or something. And what was funny is that I had followed the link, and that's what I was referring to. And even in her summary, she explained it. So anyway, and what happened too was, I think Thomas Massey had tweeted this out and said, go ahead and open the PDF and search it. The word fentanyl is not in there, which is, interesting. Okay. But anyway, I thought this was funny. So count 3, I'm not going to read the whole thing, folks, but count 3 is just titled possession of machine guns and destructive devices. The grand jury further charges, paragraphs, blah, blah, blah. That's a bunch of legalese, right? But again, so they're going through the various counts, what is he being charged with? So count 3 is possession of machine guns and destructive devices. And now can you go to the next one? What's the next count? Count 4 is conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices. So I was a wise guy when I saw this and tweeted out, and I said, not only did Maduro and his men have machine guns, but they had machine guns on purpose, which is just an extra no-no.
I mean, we sent an aircraft carrier down there in a support group and kidnapped the leader, but it was a RICO charge. I mean, that is kind of a big deal.
So, I mean, there's so much here. Again, just the irony of, tough guy, American constitutional Obama, you livered, sack, get out of here. Who love, if the school gets shot up, hey, sorry, Second Amendment, get out of here. But some guy in Venezuela has machine guns that are apparently it's in violation of some 1934 law in the United States, by the way, not in Venezuela. And not in the treaty that Venezuela signed with the U.S. where they said, we promise forevermore we will be in compliance with your gun laws. Thank you. This is just what the heck is going on here?
When I first saw that it was the only charge remaining, I looked to see if it was a parody account that I was reading this on or something.
Yeah.
Like, how can this be true?
Yeah. I was harassing Jeremy Coffin as my want. He was kind of doing his wishy-washy, like,
yeah,
I'm if you oppose this, you're wrong, but I don't favor it. Like one of those things where, but anyway, and he was going on, I think it was him. I'm pretty sure I had it. And I said, how can a libertarian, like the guy's being charged with being a drug dealer and having machine guns, like that you can't, like, as a libertarian, get all worked up about that. Cause Germany was trying to go through with police. Hey, the government, if they steal something or whatever, what else saying, look at, a lot of the charges here. You would think prima facie gung-ho libertarians would say, hey, it's my kind of guy.
Right? I hope it's gold plated.
All right. So those are the counts there. Why don't we... I want to make sure people see this. Let's do the Trump one. So in case you're wondering, like, to hear from the man himself, what's in store? What does the future hold for us? J.D. Vance tweeted out a screenshot of Trump's Truth Social. And this is from, on the screenshot here, folks, it just says the hours because I grabbed today, but we're recording this on January 6th. And so Trump says, I am pleased to announce that the interim authorities in Venezuela will be turning over between 30 and 50 million barrels of high-quality sanctioned oil to the United States of America. This oil will be sold at its market price, and that money will be controlled by me as President of the United States of America to ensure it is used to benefit the people of Venezuela and the United States! ! I have asked Energy Secretary Chris Wright to execute this plan immediately. It will be taken by storage ships and brought directly to unloading docks in the United States. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And so my wise guy, I retweeted that and wrote, I'm pretty sure Trump just nationalized Venezuela's oil to distribute it to the people.
Very nice. You are a treasure.
Which is, again, ostensibly one of the reasons we don't like this guy. That he just grabs oil and, he's going to be a man that handed it out to the poor people. Or whatever. Big oil companies don't need it. So, anyway.
I want to, people who can't see the screen, I want to point out that maybe Trump is getting better because although he did put million in all caps, and then capitalized barrels and high and quality and sanctioned and oil, and then oil again, and then market price, capitalized that too. But then when he said this money will be controlled by me, both letters are lowercase. I feel like, he's not such an egomaniac. Doesn't have to just capitalize everything.
You're right. I think in his he's controlled by me, not controlled by me. So I think that is the way. Also, I mean, I know we're being kind of funny here, but I do think partly there, even he realized that might be off-putting or be unseemly to say, like, I just grabbed their oil, but instead just to, like, assure people, don't worry, I'm the one overseeing this. So if you trust me, this thing's going to go down fairly. But again, even prima facie on this, how is that, like, so, okay, it's like you call the police and say some guy took my wallet, and they go and they kill 80 people and get your wallet back, and then the police chief tweets out and says, I have recovered this stolen money, and I am now going to use it to buy things at fair market prices and then distribute it to the people of this neighborhood and the neighborhood from where the mugger came from. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So I don't see how that helps me get my money back.
You'll get like a plaque or a certificate or something.
All right. We must continue. We have so much more material.
There we go.
Okay. Partly I want to do this ad just because I had already alluded to with the Steve Miller clip. Okay, so this is the nested thing, folks, so I will do it the way it happened in time. That originally, apparently way back in June 15th, Matt had tweeted out, the U.S. has been at war with one random Middle East country after another for my entire adult life. It's baffling that there are people who want this to continue. Can we focus on our own problems for a change? Is that such a radical suggestion? So again, that's Matt Walsh as of June of 2025. So this Viva Frey guy grabbed that and tweeted it out, recently. I think January 4th. Yes, January 4th. And Viva Frey, quoted that and put a ... and said, going to war to secure. So he was literally quoting from a new Matt Walsh post.
Yeah. Yeah.
He says, going to war to secure vital resources for your own people is totally legitimate. And then Viva, in the context of this screenshot he had of the June one, said, wow, how quickly people change. All right, so he's obviously pointing out how can Matt Walsh, in case folks you don't know, Matt Walsh has been the most over-the-top defender of what happened here with Trump going into Venezuela. We have some more receipts in the next batch we'll show you, but just for the context. So Matt Walsh has been going around the most over-the-top, Monroe Doctrine, we can do what we want. It's our hemisphere. Totally on board. He actually said, because I'm America first, I want us to subordinate every other nation in this hemisphere to become our vassals. He literally said those words.
Wow.
And so, anyway, so that's the context here. And this Viva Frey guy, like, geez, back in June, he doesn't want to do that. And so now Matt Walsh is responding to the charge of hypocrisy and says, yes, I oppose fighting decades-long wars half a world away to bring democracy to Islamic tribesmen. On the other hand, I support a 90-minute military operation against an adversarial communist government in our own hemisphere to directly benefit America and its people. There is no contradiction between these two positions. Not every military action is the same as every other. So, again, just to echo the point I made earlier with Stephen Miller, when we went into Afghanistan, when we went into Iraq, when we went into wherever else he has in mind, it was not sold as we're going to be over there for a decade plus, and the reason we're doing it is to bring democracy to Islamic tribesmen, and this doesn't benefit us in any way. That was not how any of those things were sold. Maybe remember the mission accomplished things banner, right? And so the point is, just because now we're selling this one this way doesn't mean we're not going to get all those bad things, right? So anyway.
I don't understand why Matt Walsh doesn't love America as much as he could. He only loves it half as much. Because if it's good to make every government in this hemisphere a vassal state to America, wouldn't it be good to make every government on Earth a vassal state to America? What's he got against the Eastern Hemisphere and all its goodies? And
I guess they would have to stop studying the Monroe Doctrine. Actually, they wouldn't. They would come up with some way like, no, this is the very definition of the Monroe Doctrine. If you think about it.
If you really think about it.
You could slice, you could just cut an apple in different ways. And, any other point on Earth, there's a great circle that connects that to Washington. And so therefore,
That's right. Who defines what a hemisphere is?
Okay. Guess we've reached the end, right?
We've reached the end. We're going to do at the end of the fireworks display when just a whole bunch of them come off.
Yes.
So I'm going to put up a bunch of whatever these things are. Bob's going to read them, and we're just going to move on with no commentary until the end.
Yes. Hold your applause, folks, until the end.
The order doesn't matter at this point, right?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so here's this guy, Fisher King. And by the way, none of these people are like nobodies. This isn't, tough guy account 379. Even though it says Fisher King 64, I promise you this guy has some cachet in our circles. Okay, so Fisher King back in August 2023. So what he's doing here is, just to set the context, folks, a bunch of people, like Democrats and others, were saying what we just did, it's not just we disagree with it, it's bad policy. Like, this is illegal. This, according to international law, you can't just go grab the leader of another country like this. You can't do that. It's against international law. So a lot of people were guffawing, like, oh, listen, this guy believes in international law. Okay, so this is Fisher King's take. So he was tweeting something from himself from 2023 that said, international law is a fiction. There is no central authority to enforce it, which gives law legitimacy. In reality, it is a way to talk about diplomacy. If it is used as a tool to stake out moral high ground when convenient, otherwise ignored. All right, so that's what he said back in 2023. And so now he's, re-upping that and saying international law doesn't exist. All law doesn't exist without a central authority to enforce it. People who talk about international law, in quotes, are making moral and legal claims because they're weak. Okay. Next, please.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is don't be confused, folks. The account is Crowder CEO, but it's not Stephen Crowder. It's this G. Morgan Jr. guy who works with him, I guess. I don't know if he actually is the CEO or that's just an ironic thing, but anyway, it's not Crowder. But this guy's account is decent sized. So he's retweeting somebody who has said, if you ever feel stupid, just remember there are people who believe in, quote, international law. And so this G. Morgan Jr. guy says, this, exclamation point. Laws that have no force are not laws in any meaningful sense of the word. Okay, next. Okay, Matt Walsh is responding. So this guy, Sneeko, said, if a brown country invaded America to bomb D.C. and kidnap the president for the sole purpose of stealing our oil, we would rightfully call them terrorists. When Americans do it, it's called colonialism. Okay, so then Matt Walsh is responding to that and says, this is the level of retarded sub-70 IQ commentary that has taken over some factions of the right. No, quote, brown country on earth would be capable of doing what this idiot describes. And yes, we're in favor of America exerting its power to advance its interest, but we're not in favor of other countries advancing their interests at our expense. Wow, in caps. You got us. What an insight. That's because we're Americans and we actually love our country and want it to succeed, unlike this guy. Okay, next. And this is Scott Greer, who he wrote, I don't know if he still has a account, but he wrote, for example, for Daily Caller. And again, he has tens of thousands of subscribers, if not more. I forget the number, but no schlub. This tweet itself got 4.3 thousand hearts. Only America is capable of enforcing international law, in quotation marks. Russia, China, and the Middle East don't care about it. Europe cares about it, but can't enforce it. Since only America has that capability, it decides what is and is not international law. All right, was that the last one, or is there more?
That was the last one,
okay.
Yeah.
And again, folks, I didn't even grab all the ones I could have. Matt Walsh just had a ton. And so I assure you, I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth that they were coming out and just flatly saying, yes, we can do this because we have a strong military and nobody can stop us. So that's why we can do this. There's no such thing as international law. This is the way history's always been. The strong countries do whatever they want. Right now, we're the superpower. We get to do what we want. That's why we're allowed to do this. I'm not putting words in their mouth. They literally said that.
Did Matt Walsh, was he one of the ones who literally said there is no higher authority? Matt Walsh, mega Christian, conservative type?
That was just incredible. So he was going back and forth with Edward Fazer. Do you know who he is?
Mm-mm.
He's, I think Tom Woods. Oh, he's the guy, the interview I sent you.
Oh, yeah.
I I can see it really sunk in. So
that wasn't the last name, was it? I'm going to defend my ignorance. I don't care. Edward Penton?
Oh, isn't that the interviewer?
Edward V. Edward?
Anyway, you can look that up.
Yeah, you're right. Feezer, yeah.
Okay. So anyway, this he had been on Tom Woods' show, for example, because he had a book about Aquinas and like Aquinas' arguments for the existence of God and stuff like that, right? So this guy is super, I think he personally is Catholic. I guess technically I'm not sure, but I'm virtually sure that he is, but is definitely an authority in like, you know, the church fathers and the writings of the medieval scholastics and all this stuff. And so he has been coming out, you know, very proper and grammatical and not, you know, calling people war hawks or pigs or, you know what I mean? Not calling Trump a war criminal, but just very calmly explaining how, yeah, what we just, you can't do. And then he was, when people were mocking the notion of international law, he was correcting them and, you know, referring to all of these great thinkers. Incidentally, I'm going to have Peter Klein on the Human Action podcast. It's going to drop probably at a similar time to when this episode does, because he for one of his classes assigns that stuff, and he was just going through and you know, all these guys in the medieval and later tradition of just applying natural law to, you know, the world stage, and the countries interacting with each other, and they have their interests, and they're, you know, avaricious and bloodthirsty and whatnot. And so what happens, and how should they conduct themselves? As you say, because as we all know, we're all good followers of Jesus Christ and, you know, the Holy Church. And so therefore, so yeah, for these people to be like, what? There's no higher part. There's nothing can stop us. What? And it's like, we're coming from people who think there's a God. I mean, it's just,
yeah.
And like not even, I'm sorry, but not even saying like, oh yeah, in your private life, sure, that's one thing here, but on the world stage, you know, the rules are different. Like just, again, just how nakedly, I mean, I summed it up and I said, at this point, it really wouldn't even surprise me if Trump announced he was funding the creation of a giant golden calf, and Glenn Beck tweeted out that, yeah, that's great because it's a good hedge against inflation. I mean, it's like, last thing, I'm sorry, Ian, but my point here, just in case people are misunderstanding me, I'm not flipping out that the administration did this. Again, I was surprised just technically that they could pull this off with nobody dying from our side. And I'm not even surprised that the Ben Shapiros or like Matt Walsh's or whoever are defending it. What's shocking me is the way they're defending it. That's my point, in case people aren't getting that. It's just, they're just openly saying, because we can. So why wouldn't we? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we're being told the truth of why this happened. And when these people on social media are just rushing out to defend it, I think this is all rationalization. You know, as Jonathan Haidt says, the conclusion comes first, and then they try and figure out a way to make it make sense, first to themselves and then to anybody else. There's a lot of weird theories as to why we embarked on this. There's the... you know, we got to stop the fentanyl from coming from a country that it doesn't come from. That's obviously not it. I don't believe it was to get Trump the Nobel Peace Prize by trying to put this lady on the throne who won the Nobel Peace Prize, and so he'd sort of get it by proxy or something. I don't think it was that. I don't think it was to save the Venezuelan people. I don't think it was to get anything back for these oil companies. I don't know why it is. I've heard some theories, like people thinking that maybe there is evidence of how the 2020 election got tampered with down there in Venezuela. We're going to go get that. I've heard theories that we're going to lose X% of access to Middle Eastern oil if this Iran shakeup occurs and they freak out and close the Straits of Hormuz, and we can get an equal amount out of Venezuela, if not more. I don't know what to think about that. It seems a little far-fetched. It's obviously not because Maduro's a bad guy. Who cares? I think it has to do with something various United States administrations have been after Venezuela for a while, and I never really understood why, because the stated reasons were always clearly not it. You have any theory?
Yeah. By the way, I had heard, again, we don't know.
Oh, and one more, the more plausible one, that it has to do with BRICS and just not wanting Iran and China and whoever else to just have influence down there, that maybe, I mean, it was kind of, if you are America, yeah, and you get a little chub over all of this, it was kind of cool that Maduro just met with a group of Chinese ambassadors that, that afternoon and early evening, like hours before we went in and grabbed him. So I don't know. Was that pointing to something? I kind of doubt it, but it was interesting timing.
But by the way, just before because I do want to go through that stuff, just to finish that last train of thought, in case people are like, okay, Bob, what's your point? So it upsets you. I don't care. Okay, but I guess I'm really upset at just the poor leadership of Conservative Inc. or MAGA or whatever. Like they're like the intellectual torchbearers. Just how reckless and careless they are. Because you're right, Adam. They know whether they literally got orders or, like, my suspicion was perhaps the reason Matt Walsh is just so over the top on this is he's been kind of in no man's land with the Israel stuff. And, people were saying, like, oh, you're going to get fired, Matt, or whatever. And so maybe here he's like, no, if I'm going to be for, since I'm for this, I'm going to just swing for the fences. You know what I mean? Like, so that when I'm in agreement with my boss, like, where I'm really zealous about it. That's my one possible explanation of what the heck's going on. But just, again, the laziness and, like, I know this might sound silly, but, like, the guys at the Daily Wire, when they're watching The Lord of the Rings near the end, where they're like, what do you, it's going to melt. What are you doing? You're going to melt it.
Quick, fish it out of there.
I
quick.
thought you were going to go kill the bad guy with that. What the heck are you doing? I mean, it's just astonishing.
And these guys know the story of the, what Christ went through and what that was all about, and how he did not come to overthrow the Romans. He came to do this other thing.
And also, this is what we're going to really unpack with Peter. But partly why I take such umbrage on that is that's the whole deal with, like, polycentric law and decentralized enforcement and everything, is that, you don't need one group, and you don't. It's not like, oh, how could you have physics unless there's this one group that is in charge of physics or math or anything? Lots of things you don't need to have some little central authority in charge, or else it doesn't, it's not coherent or consistent. And that's also true even of law. And there's no point in getting into here. But I mean, if people go look up my lectures on private law and stuff, I mean, that's one of the chief fallacies that I spend 15 minutes knocking down on the front end, is to understand how a voluntary society works. You have to get it out of your head that we can only have the rule of law if there's one group that's just in charge of everybody. That doesn't need to be true. And partly how it ends up, like, the fallacy is, well, okay, there's not enforcement. And I'll say, I mean, if you really push that, that's nuts, that idea, right? Like, oh, well, if the police, don't have enough funding and they just, the homicide happens, but they just don't really put anybody on the case, does that mean it really wasn't illegal because no one's enforcing the law? Like, no, you wouldn't say that. So you can just go through that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's just partly why I was so upset about that. So now flipping back to what you were talking about. Oh, sorry. Last thing. Even within that, though, there's all sorts of other things that can happen to, quote, enforce it, right? Like people respond. Like, it's important just to have a fact of the matter. And yes, there were, again, with the classic writers and whatnot, and this is the stuff that Phaser talks about, like just war doctrine and stuff like that. Like, that was there. And yes, it's not that, because some people thought of that, therefore every political official from thenceforward obeyed that. Of course not. But we had a rational standard by which to judge their behavior. So they would know, are you breaking international law? Is that against the rules of war? Like we just talked earlier about, no, if guys surrender, you can't just mow them down. Well, why not? It's war. It's like, because there's rules. That's why. Like, literally, there are rules of war. And so, anyway, I'm just saying, like, these guys acting like this is nothing. And yeah, how does that get enforced? Ultimately, even if there's not one overarching power, or Martians don't come and, threaten to zap us, other countries can respond. There can be things. And so, yes, if we think the U.S. can just do this to Venezuela and there's going to be no repercussions, and I don't mean, next Thursday they're going to bomb Miami because they're going to realize we can't right now. That would be reckless. But that's going to accelerate all kinds of stuff, going forward that might not have otherwise happened, where people are just going, this guy is insane, and the precedent is being set. Okay, so, sorry, I went through. Do you want to respond there, or do you want me to come back to your...
It's all you, baby.
Okay. So your earlier things, I loved the one about, since they know we're getting ready to hit Iran and they're clearly going to shut the straits, we got to have another source of oil, and so let's open up this thing down here. Not because that actually makes sense, but because the way they think of things, that would make sense to them. And what I mean is, just real briefly going on this, that this notion that, because Chavez and Maduro, they nationalized the oil, that now Americans don't have it. And that's, no, we just want the free flow of oil. It's like, well, oil is fungible. I mean, it's not, they're not completely interchangeable.
You mean they actually sell it? They don't just swim in it and drink it and
yes, I think
have Diddy parties?
Yes. I think I'm crediting him, and if not, it's fine. He deserves credit. David R. Henderson, because I was asking him about the Iraq invasion, and talking about, okay, so Saddam takes oil. What's the point of taking over oil fields except to sell the oil, right? and just, it depends, like, who's going to get the profits or whatever. But I mean, it's not that motorists around the world are going to be deprived based on who controls the oil field. And the analogy I think he used was something like, when like somebody goes and steals, like a truck carrying TVs, it's not because he wants to have a TV in every room in his house.
Right.
It's because he's going to sell them. Or, someone knocks off, a truck carrying a bunch of cartons of cigarettes. It's not like, oh, wow, that guy's going to have some big parties. Like, no, you steal that stuff to sell it. And so likewise here, even if, what's weird too is we've had tons of sanctions on Venezuela. So like, even if they did want to sell oil to some, party who's connected loosely to an American company, like, that's literally illegal. If like U.S. businesses do business with any entity that's more than 50% tied to the Venezuelan energy company, then they get the sanctions applied to them too. You know what I mean? So like, it's pretty, I was reading it over earlier today, like the history of our sanctions against them. It's pretty broad based, like to ICE, like you can't even lend money to the state Venezuelan energy company. You can't buy their bonds, let alone buy their oil. If you have anything to do with the United States, or else we freeze your bank accounts and whatever. So anyway, but my point still, being they're selling the oil to somebody. And so that means the oil that those people otherwise would have bought can come to us. You know what I mean? Like from Saudi Arabia or Canada or wherever. So anyway.
I'm old enough to remember when a partial embargo like that was itself considered an act of war. How quaint.
Yeah, well. So I think, I think there is that. Call me crazy. I think it's partly the same thing like with Castro, just the fact that they talk back. And I think the U.S. because what's his name? Chavez, I don't know if I said it to you. I said it, I think, when I was talking to Scott Horton. It was at some UN thing one time when it was in New York, I believe. And he went up there, and George W. Bush had spoken. I don't know if he was right before him or like he was definitely before him, but I don't know if it was immediately. And when Chavez gets up there, he like looks down and he says, I'm standing where George Bush was earlier. I can still smell the sulfur. And then he goes into his speech. So I think, given how much everybody else kind of, pays their respects to, especially like Trump or whatever, the fact that these guys, because did you see some of the footage of this guy? Like he was like saying, come and get me. Like he was taunting them. He was like Tony Stark when he didn't realize that there were missiles coming in his house. So I think it could partly just be them saying, we just can't tolerate this. Like the rest of the world needs to know, if you treat us like this, this is what happens to you.
I did hear that, I'm sure it had military significance, but they bombed Chavez's tomb or memorial or something, just as a little FU.
Well, it was in violation of the Irrigation Act.
It was too tall. It was 2 feet too tall for the local ordinance. All right. Well, have we covered it sufficiently, good sir?
I think so. And I guess the last thing I'll say is, again, like the astonishment and the audacity just has no ends. The people, Trump is saying stuff like, yeah, the president of Colombia needs to watch his ass. People are making jokes about Canada. With Greenland, people are not even joking. They're openly saying, like some of these conservative Inc. guys, like, by what right, what is it, Finland? Like, why do they control it? And anyway, it's just astonishing. Like people are not, like, that's part of the conversation is, should we just take Greenland? And I think it was Steve Miller. I saw someone asking him, and he was like saying, is it on the table? Or would we use military force? And his answer was, like, he cited the size of their military. It was like, no one's fighting us over that. But he didn't say we're not going to send in the army. So anyway.
Why stop there? Take Canada too. All right. Well, this was great. Nice to be back in the saddle with you, good sir. If you'll indulge me.
Yeah.
Where am I here? We put an ad for the Swan Brothers earlier in this episode. I just want to show you that Haman Nature has got its own little swag store from the Swan Brothers. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is like shirts and hoodies and shorts and stuff. But that company, I'm telling you, they do high-end stuff for marketing, for branding, for fundraising, some sports stuff. It's pretty great. And the link to the Haman Nature show will be at my Substack, hamannature.substack.com, and also the description of this video at YouTube, Haman Nature. And you should also check out the Bob Murphy Show, just in case you're not already. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channels because we'll know that you care. Any parting words, Bob?
Just if you're a foreign ruler, get rid of those machine guns. And the memos where you talk with your people about, should we buy some machine guns? Get rid of those.
Yeah, that's right. Don't conspire. Save the children. All right, bye-bye, Bob. Bye-bye, ladies and gentlemen. We'll catch you next time.
Take care, folks.